Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Chargers Analytics with Arjun. Coming off a week 2 loss versus the Chiefs, now facing the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. If you want to hear about my thoughts about the Chiefs game, you can go check out the official uh channels recap we did right after Thursday night. So, not really going to get too into the weeds with what happened in week 2. I kind of gave my whole spiel last Thursday. So definitely just want to keep it about the Jaguars. And, before I dive into my scouting report, I will say, I think regarding the Herbert situation, no game is guaranteed. We saw that last year with the Texans. And if he's able to play, he should be playing. Obviously, I don't want it to be a position where even if he can play, the injury can get worse. In that situation, I do think he should be sitting out, but no game is guaranteed. And if the Chargers weren't to play Herbert, the Vegas spread would go from Chargers favored by 7 to probably Jaguars favored by like 1 or 2. That's how much Herbert is worth. And I just felt like I needed to put that out there. He's, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and losing him would change the direction of the franchise even for a singular game. But as always, we're going to be walking through our weekly game plan, doing our opponent scouting for the Jaguars, as well as looking at some self-scouting things about the Chargers. So, as usual, first off, let's look at personnel packages for both teams. So, as you can see, the Jacksonville Jaguars run 11 personnel about 67% of the time in 2022. Chargers up to about 61.1% at running 11 personnel. They do run 12 personnel a decent amount, a little bit above league average. And the Jaguars, they also run 12 personnel a good chunk. I would say, the Chargers, they actually run it a little bit more than the Chargers, and they even run 13 personnel a lot. So they do like to use their tight ends a lot, Evan Engram, Chris Manhertz, in these type of personnel packages. Looking at the Jaguars defense, the Jaguars are kind of like an analytically forward organization. They have a decent amount of analytics staffers on their team, and Doug Peterson was a known analytics user. He likes to use analytics in his work, so of course they like to play light boxes, a lot. Pretty much run a lot of 6-man boxes, and 7-man boxes are their second most favored defensive, I guess, how they line up and the number of people they use in the box. Breaking it down by run and pass. Again, you can just see the big hump at 6 defenders in the box for the passing game, and it follows a pretty similar distribution to all plays in general. So, Jaguars are going to run a lot of 6-man boxes. Chargers are going to have a lot of opportunities to run the ball, even though that's not really what we want them to do, but they should hopefully be able to get back on track, especially in the run game against the Jaguars with all these light boxes. Okay, so let's talk about the Jaguars offense. This is like the main part, right? Like Trevor Lawrence, he's been looking really good to start the year. All the film people are kind of justified. All the people who had him as the greatest quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck, everything's coming to fruition in this offense. Looking at their personnel packages, again, very, very small sample sizes for all of these. So don't really think this predicts anything for the future or is really telling us a lot about the offense. I just, again, it's very early in the season, and because it's a completely new offense, using 2021 data is kind of invaluable, or is not valuable because it doesn't provide any info about this offense. So, the Jaguars ran one play that's not 11, 12, 13, 10, or 21 personnel. So this is probably just a like a fourth down conversion out of heavy personnel that they converted through the air. They do like to run a lot of 11 personnel and 12 personnel, as I alluded to in my personnel graph that I showed at the beginning. They actually perform very well, or pretty well, out of both of those personnels. They average 0.106 EPA per play out of 11 personnel and 0.109 EPA per play out of 12 personnel. Again, EPA stands for expected points added. The goal of the metric is to capture the true value of a play in terms of how many points it adds to the offense and how many points it takes away from the defense. The interesting part is through 2 weeks, the Jaguars passed the ball 11.5% less than expected out of 12 personnel. So again, the whole goal of this report is as if I'm presenting it to a coach. So if I'm, talking to Ronaldo Hill or like Tommy Donatel or something, I'll be like, look, when they go in 12 personnel, they've been passing the ball 11.5% less than expected. They've been running the ball 11.5% more than expected. So you can be expecting a run in most situations when they come out in 12 personnel, and they in a decent enough sample size, 33 plays is enough to say that. But they've kind of haven't really done much out of 10 personnel, and they kind of suck out of 13 personnel. Um, and again, I brought up Chris Manhertz and Evan Engram. I did want to kind of talk about the player snap counts for the Jags. I'm trying to get this to zoom out. Okay, that should be fine. So as we can see, James Robinson is kind of like the feature back in this offense. Travis Etienne is, I would say, running back 1B to Robinson 1A. When they go 12 personnel, they love to use Robinson in those situations. I think that kind of signals that he is the 1A back because they like to run the ball a lot at a 12 personnel, as I just mentioned. When Chris Manhertz comes on, it's primarily in 12 personnel. He has more snaps in 12 personnel than he does in 11. Evan Engram's kind of the tight end one, and the wide receiver depth chart isn't anything too surprising. Kirk is one, Marvin Jones is two, Zay Jones is three. So, some interesting takeaways here. Again, when they go 12 personnel, if you see this on television when you're watching or in person, you can kind of be like, oh, it's probably going to be a run. Again, it's not definitive. Everything is probabilistic, but just some interesting information there. Looking at how the Jaguars have performed out of each offensive formation, though, they have done extremely well out of empty. So they've run 10 plays out of empty in 2022, and they're averaging about 0.626 EPA per play. And obviously, they're going to pass the ball 33.3% more than expected out of empty. No one really runs out of empty. But when the Jags go empty, they're kind of letting Trevor Lawrence analyze the situation and letting him attack the defense in the way he wants to. And they're doing very well on it. They've pretty much added 6 points so far, or 6.26 points to be precise, simply by running empty to start the year. Could see some more of these looks against the Chargers. I'm not really sure how they're going to attack the Chargers defense. They've been very successful out of single back, averaging about 0.155 EPA per play, and they're kind of successful, only averaging 0.032 EPA per play out of shotgun, and they do like to run most of their plays out of shotgun and single back, as most teams do. When they do go under center, though, they are running the ball 11.66% less than expect, or running the ball 11.66% more than expected. So again, if we see them in single back and 12 personnel, we should highly be expecting a run. So if you're watching with one of your friends, you'd be like, oh, I'm predicting it's a run when they're under single back and running 12 personnel, and you can see him pretty smart there. Switching back to the defense real quick, I should really move this to the top actually, but switching back to the defense, the Jaguars send an average of about 4.182 pass rush players on pass rushing snaps, which ranks 17th in the league, so about league average. They do blitz about 28.05% of the time, which is above league average. So something I think Herbert and honestly the offense has struggled on a little bit is pass protection on blitzes. Eckler hasn't done a good job at picking up these like weak side linebackers who are coming off a blitz, or these slot corners. So if the Jaguars do blitz, which I would expect them to, especially continuing at the rate they're blitzing at, I would expect the Chargers to maybe struggle a little bit as they have been. But again, it's still very early in the season. The Jags could obviously not blitz as much because of Herbert's arm. But to put him in an uncomfortable situation because of his ribs, this number could definitely stay the same. So on average, they're sending about 4.1 rushers, so doing it at a league average rate, but they do blitz at an above league average rate. And regarding the Chargers, they send about 4.29 pass rushers a snap, and they blitz 25% of the time, which is around league average. Now, looking at how the Jaguars, throw the ball, like how they perform at each part of the field. So you can see they like to target the right side of the field the most often. That's where Trevor throws the ball. In total, he's thrown the ball to the right side of the field about 33 times. He loves throwing it short and to the right, where he averages about a 0.57 EPA per play, which is very, very good. In general, when he throws it short, he's doing very well. whether it is over the middle or to the left side of the field, or even right to the right side of the field. Where he's had a lot of success also is throwing to the intermediate part of the field to his left. So that could be a point of emphasis, for the Chargers. Make sure you can see what type of concepts they're running, dagger concepts or sail concepts, where he's targeting like a corner route or he's targeting like a curl route to his left. But yeah, he's been pretty good to start the year, and overall he's been throwing it to all parts of the field, but has primarily targeted the right side as his main side of the field. In terms of the Jags receiving weapons, again, Christian Kirk, wide receiver one, averaging 0.76 EPA per target, which is a really good number. That's a number you want to see if you're a Jags fan, especially with all the money you gave him. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, the two other big targets that are kind of helping them out, and then Evan Engram is obviously tight end one. So the goal should be to try to stop Kirk, and then the two Joneses. And then, you kind of let Engram do whatever he wants because he's probably going to drop a ball at some point in the game. Looking at the Jaguars' run game on the offensive side of the ball, they love to run the ball outside the tackle. So the end gap is what we classify as outside the tackles. They run the ball 13 times to the left side outside the tackles, and they run the ball 11 times to the right side outside of the tackles. Again, these numbers aren't exactly precise, unfortunately, with the public data I'm using. Even though I can use PFF data, I want to make everything public. The public data isn't as precise, so there are some missing values, and they definitely run the ball more than what is stated here. But again, I think there is some validity to these numbers. So haven't been the best rushing team, which I will show right here. You can see James Robinson, even though he's maybe gonna been a good fantasy back for those fantasy owners. He's averaging negative 0.16 EPA per rush. ETN is negative 0.236. So they haven't been effective at all running the ball. And, that kind of shows up in the numbers. In terms of their defense, they struggle a lot when teams run between the center and the guard to the left side. So, if Corey Linsley's healthy, I'm recording this on a Wednesday before the injury news comes out. If he's healthy, they should be running it right between Filer and Linsley, hopefully for some big gains. Obviously, you want to be running to the left side more than the right side because of how strong the left side is, but not a lot of points to attack on this Jaguars defensive line, which has suddenly turned into a strength for them. Okay, that was the Jaguars. Let's do our self-scouting for the Chargers. Not a ton to report on the defensive side of the ball. Again, we see the standard Staley distribution, a ton of light boxes, just like Jacksonville. And when we break it down, again, versus when he's in known pass situations, he's running 5-man boxes, he's running 6-man boxes. He wants to get as many coverage defenders, in position to succeed. And the way you do that is obviously by running those light boxes. Now, through 2 weeks, how the Chargers have performed out of each personnel package. They've done very well out of a personnel package that's not 11, 12, 13, 21, or 22. So, or 10. So they've done a pretty good job, I think, in general. Obviously, the pick six against the Chiefs sucked. And again, a lot of my thoughts on the offense I talked about in the recap video on Thursday. So make sure to go check it out. They've kind of sucked in 22 personnel, averaging negative 0.69 EPA per play. So maybe we don't run that formation a lot, or maybe we don't run that formation going forward. And I think this number is just bad because they're failing to convert like third or fourth downs, or they're failing to succeed in these like high leverage situations. But overall, like these numbers are kind of what I wanted to see. Like they're passing the ball way more than expected, which is good. Put the ball in Justin Herbert's hands. Even if the average depth of route or average depth of target is like under 5 or under 4, as long as they're throwing the ball, good things will happen, especially just putting the ball in Herbert's hands. They're averaging a 0.15 EPA per play out of 12 personnel and 0.028 EPA per play out of 11. I think this number in 11 personnel should be higher. I believe they ran the pick six out of 11 personnel, which was Everett, Palmer, Carter, and Mike Dubb. So again, this number is a little bit skewed by that pick six where Herbert lost 12 EPA, which is a really big number. So if they didn't run that play or they were able to score a touchdown, this number would be way different. In terms of how they perform out of each offensive formation, again, the reason why this number is negative in general is just because the pick six happened when they were under single back, I believe. They've done very well out of shotgun. They've done pretty well out of I formation, and Just like Trevor Lawrence out of empty, Herbert cooks, averaging 0.289 EPA per play. Only run 5 plays, so not the biggest sample size, but the early returns have been pretty solid. Okay, we're just about to wrap up. Just looking at how the Chargers throw the ball to each part of the field. So the problem I think with this offense is also like they don't target the middle of the field at all. They're making Herbert throw the ball right and left, and they only have 11 passes where he's throwing over the middle of the field as charted by like the NFL people. So if you guys don't know, like the throwing to the middle of the field is like the most efficient place in football, and obviously it's dangerous. But Herbert has the arm to make those type of throws. Yet they're kind of forcing him to make these difficult throws, which he can make, but you want to give him the easy throws. You want to give him the layups. Instead, you're forcing him to shoot a fadeaway contested three, which he can hit at a high percent, but in the long run, the variance will even out, and it'll still be good more often than bad, but when the variance goes the opposite way, it results in something like a pick six, which is like when you have a small margin for error. And even though Herbert's margin for error is a little bit bigger because of his arm, I do think I want to see them try to attack the middle of the field more often because look, when they do attack it works out very well. In terms of the Chargers rushing game, again, this is not the correct number of snaps for each rushing gap, but they've not been good rushing the ball, period. Running between the guard and center on the left side has been bad. Running outside the tackles, running outside Rashawn Slater has been bad, but not as bad. It's kind of been the best of anything, to be honest, with a larger sample size. They've sucked running the ball right, which again should not be a surprise. I know people are excited about Zion Johnson. He's still, I think, getting acclimated to the NFL, and Trey Pipkins is still a below average tackle. So running the ball right has not worked at all. Running the ball left hasn't really worked. Outside of running the ball outside on the end gap, which is outside of Rashawn Slater's shoulder. In terms of their defense, again, this data obviously does not represent the true numbers, but they've done well when teams run left. So I believe when teams run to Khalil Mack's side, Khalil Mack's been blowing it up. Again, not a lot to take away from this one just because the data isn't fully perfect. But I did want to go back to two more things, two more graphs that I had. So this graph by Timo Riske, my colleague at PFF, looking at how often teams convert first downs on like a new set of downs. So you can see Chargers right at the league average. They convert first downs on it. They convert a first down on a new series about 72% of the time, which is at league average. The Jags at 75%. The big thing is the Jaguars have converted first downs on first down 32% of the time, while the Chargers have done it 11% of the time. The Chargers have the worst first down conversion rate on first down out of any team in the league, which I think is very important to highlight and something that should be fixed because they're converting second downs 30%. They're converting second downs to first downs 30% of the time, which is a huge jump. And then you're relying on Herbert to get the extra like 24, like 30% on third and fourth down combined. So early down efficiency, especially on first down, has been awful for the Chargers. If you look at EPA per play, again, that number is going to be skewed because of the Everett, or just of the pick six in general. So EPA per play isn't the greatest number to use to measure first down efficiency. I like this number just because it's showing how aggressive, or in this case, not aggressive, the Chargers are on first down. And then, I know people will say like Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa matter. Of course they do. Of course they matter. And the Jaguars all line is okay. It's nothing to be like getting excited about. I think the one thing to highlight here is like their offensive line has been kind of like league average or average in general. But Trevor Lawrence has been exceptional at avoiding sacks, as you can see in my colleague Kevin Cole's sack prevention grading system. Trevor Lawrence has prevented the third most sacks as a quarterback, only behind Mahomes and Herbert, who are two of the best at preventing sacks. So even if Bosa and Mack are able to get pressure, it's still going to be a struggle to get Lawrence down just because of his ability to make plays outside the pocket and his ability to maneuver the pocket. So again, I think this game is going to come down to the coverage, just like I said last week. And the coverage held up last week, which is why the Chiefs only scored 20 points on offense. And again, it's going to be on the coverage if they can hold up against Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, and Zay Jones, which I think they should easily be able to do. And they just have to make sure, even if Lawrence breaks the pocket, they're not giving up the explosive plays through the air. So that's gonna wrap it up. I think my general thoughts about this game. If Herbert plays, the Chargers should win. If Herbert doesn't play, I don't really know. I think that's just gonna be a wild one to see what the offense is cooked up without Herbert. I do believe, and again, I'm recording this on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So before any injury news has come out, I do believe Herbert should be playing, and if he does, the Chargers should be able to win. I think the defense has looked legit, and I'm really excited to see what they do this week with a 10-day rest and to game plan against the Jaguars. I do see this being a high scoring or a low scoring game, actually, even if Herbert is playing. Just because I think the Jags D line has caused some problems to other offenses, and I think the Chargers offensive line hasn't looked great through 2 weeks, to be honest. So looking for a defensive struggle, but Chargers at home, 10-day rest. Everyone, hopefully Keenan comes back healthy. And I just want to see what this offense looks like with Keenan and Lindsley back in there. And then we can start making claims or assumptions about Joe Lombardi. But that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for watching until the end. And as always, bolts up.